What's going on, everybody? Welcome on this beautiful day, even though it's colder than a witch's. You're joining me here, Crypto Wolf, and we're going to talk about support and resistance. Now, this isn't necessarily a market cipher feature breakdown video, but it's very important nonetheless because, especially if you're trading, you're going to want to know your support and resistance levels. And not even always necessarily for entries, but certainly once you have a trade going, you're going to want to know if you have key areas coming up and what to be keeping an eye out for. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now we're over here on the Ethereum 1 hour chart. Haven't looked at this too much here today, but at a glance, obviously you can see we are trending back upward. Now, the first simplest thing would be some little lines here, some happy little lines, drawing some like immediate short term, at least on, in the sense of the hourly support and resistance, which kind of gives us this little channel here. And when you're drawing these kind of lines, you tend to start getting into drawing patterns, which I'm not gonna go over really in this video. We're gonna do a video specifically about patterns because there's plenty of them, and yeah, there's things that a lot of people say, oh, you get a bull flag and it's always gonna go a certain way, and a lot of the time it could be true, but not always. Like everything else, only thing certain is death and taxes, and I wish it were only death, because taxation is theft. But that's a story for another time. Now, so we're seeing this, and support and resistance, if you are a beginner here, is saying that this is a resistance level. A resistance level is going to be above the price, and that is saying that when you reach that level, it's going to hit, it bounces off, comes back up, bounces away, comes back up. It didn't quite make it on this one, but shies away. That means it is hitting resistance. You're getting a lot of selling pressure, and it's driving the price back down. And obviously the equal but opposite to that is your support levels. And your support is where you come down, it finds, you guessed it, support, some buying pressure, sends it back up, comes back down, finds support, goes back up. And that is essentially what support and resistance is. Now we can look at a few different ways of finding support and resistance. It is definitely not always, these angled lines. These trend lines is typically what you'd be calling that. And we'll see if the chart feels like cooperating. A little laggy, but oh well. All right. We're gonna stick to maybe, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit more. Okay, let's hide that for now. We're gonna stick to the time period after this nice big floppy waterfalling drop. And what we have right here is our fib retracement, more specifically the Fibonacci retracement. Now typically when you're doing this, you want to go from, like, say, a previous high down to a low, and I think it's right about there. Now, again, not going to get into a whole lot of specifics on this. I'll probably do a video just on fib retracements, but if you go from top to bottom, you'll notice you have these fib extension blocks, well, lines, but you know, they're colored in like blocks. So it will send the chart extending upward. Now, if you were to draw this the other direction, if you drew it from bottom, it's so small I can't get a grip on it. All right, to top, it extends the other direction. Now, I know a lot of people don't necessarily use all of these lines. You know, I see plenty of people that you can customize these to your heart's content, basically. You can do whatever values you want to. You can add them in there. You can change the colors. You can get rid of the shading in between. I know you see a lot of people probably that just leave the this area right in here, right around the 618, which is called the golden pocket. And that is, you know, particularly in a big dip or a big pump, where things tend to come back to. And if you look right here, you can kind of see, sure enough, we came down and we came right back up, in this case to the 50, but pretty heavily right here between 618 and 0.5. And I've seen other people do like more specific numbers with like within the, you know, the 600 range right there, but keeping it simple for the moment. And like if we extend this out, you could see what looks very much like it's hitting support and resistance. Came down here, hit support, 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 broke through a little bit, broke through, support, you know, wick through a little bit, but generally still being supported in that area. Now here, you know, we kind of came back up, we're floating around, broke through, came back, support, broke through again. Well, this is the 1 level, so that's always going to be where you put it, but in this case we set it to the very bottom. Again, resistance, came up, broke through, bounced off a 5 here, came back, tried again, got rejected, broke through. Now we're finding resistance at the 618, and we've just been kind of playing around right in this golden pocket right here. Now hopefully it'd be nice if we, you know, came through, tested a few times, and then broke through. We'll see. Oftentimes when you start getting these upward channels, they tend to break down. Now that doesn't necessarily mean we're coming all the way back down. I mean, it could break down, like, you know, we come up here, punch through, break down through the pattern, and still eventually continue up higher. Because, you know, back to like what we talked about earlier, everything's oscillations. You're going up, coming down, going up, coming down. And you could go up, down in the upward direction, or you can go up, down in the downward direction. And that's kind of what makes crypto special, is that volatility. You know, you hear a lot of people, especially outside the crypto space, oh, it's so volatile, that's dangerous, like, I don't want to mess with that. And yeah, you know, if you go looking at, say we take a look at S&P right here, you know, comparatively speaking to crypto, I mean, this looks, you would say, easier, right? I mean, look at this, we got nice big swing, a little bit of sideways, a little bit of volatility, nice big dip, nice big pump, a little bit of sideways. You know, it's not that constant, jagged madness. But it's not madness. It's Sparta. Sorry. All right, so your fib retracement is another way that you can look at support and resistance. And I guess I'll explain a little bit. So Fibonacci sequence is without getting too deep, it's these numbers right here, and it's a sequence of numbers found a long time ago by somebody who was pretty smart, probably smarter than me, but I won't admit it. I guess I just did. Shit. And it tends to show up in nature a lot. You know, it's especially mathematics and geometry and things like that. And that's as far as I'll get with it right now, because, you know, I'm a nerd, but nobody said you had to be one too. And so we have our trend line support and resistance. We have some fib retracement, support and resistance. And if you wanted to, probably not that. This is a horizontal ray. This is like your favorite bar you can set up so that you can have certain tools on deck on command. Let's say we came up here, pow, pop that bad boy in there. Reclick, pow, pop that bad boy in there. And then we get rid of our giant rainbow, which I'm sure would make the rainbow people happy to have it on there, but I apologize, it's just cluttering up the screen. I'm sorry, it is. Let's change these. I was using green because in a lot of, like, I'll keep certain charts, and for like my hodl positions, I'll actually mark a horizontal ray, a green one, at where my buy price was. So specifically, you know, if you're looking back weeks or months later, you're not, you know, writing it down on paper or having to go back through your trading account and see, like, what the fuck did I pay for that? So it makes it nice. But in this case, all right, so we've got, you know, a couple fib lines there that we'll leave for the moment. Now, more importantly is looking at, you know, your highs and your lows, but also the amount of volume traded at a specific price level. Now, just glancing by eye, there's a tool to visualize this better, but glancing at it by eye, you would look at this and you'd say, okay, you know, we're trading in this range quite a bit, you know, bumped up a little bit, but this range has a lot of volume in it. Come back down and maybe say this range has some volume, this range has some volume, and that tells you that there is a lot of support and or resistance at those levels. And a good way to visualize that, I'll start maybe like here, take it to the end, boom. This tool is over here. It'll be on this second from the bottom of this top section list all the way down at the bottom. Fixed range volume profile. Now, the name is fairly self-explanatory. You have a fixed range that you drag your line across. And what this is it's kind of like this down here. This is your volume indicator. This is also a volume indicator, but down here, this is volume by time interval. So for every candle up here, you get a volume bar down here. Well, instead, what you get with this, again, fixed range volume profile, is you get volume bars for every price interval. So you look at it, you say, okay, a lot of volume here, a little more here, less here, a lot of volume here. You know, it gets choppy, but the volume goes down as we come down. A little last hurrah of volume right in this area. And if you're looking at the chart, you say, okay, you know, we're crashing. Now we got some buying support, some bullish support here. Similar thing going on here. You know, by the time the price came down to this level, people were starting to buy. They're like, okay, it's getting low. You know, I'm trying to jump up in there. I'm trying to get it at a discount. So now you have two different colors. Plus you have this bright and diffuse or shaded area, including on the top. And all this kind of gets set in the settings, except for, you know, the length of these bars. But The blue here, and I set this blue, you can set it as green just to have it make more sense, you know, visually, but this is the upward volume, and the red here is your downward volume. So as you can see, let's say this right here is the longest bar. You kind of see where it stops, and this red line here just basically delineates where the most volume is. It's at that price range. This is called the point of control, the POC. So if you're in the settings here, POC, you know, you can change the line color. Now it's yellow. Actually, I'll probably leave it at yellow. And that just kind of tells you, again, where the strongest volume was. And if you're looking at this, you might be thinking like, okay, yeah, we had a little bit of sideways here, but for the most part, we're just peaking up at this line. And, you know, you're thinking, okay, well, there's a lot more candles along here. You know, there's some more candles along here. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where the most volume is, because when this is pumping, you may have a lot of people buying, but at the same time, it's getting high up there, and people are starting to say, you know what, I'm flipping around on this one. I'm going to short while it's high, and I'm going to try to catch it going down. So you have, and you can kind of tell you have these wicks sticking off the top, to where you had a lot of buying pressure, enough to push it up, but also a lot of selling pressure, enough to push it back down, and you end up with a good amount of volume on those candles, which you can see over here. Now you also had some back here too, but that gives you an idea of where, you know, the most support and resistance may be. Now this white line right here is the they call it the dev POC, which is basically just how that point of control, or the most volume, this yellow line right here, how it developed over time. So if you were to go, you know, back in time, you got your DeLorean, you're looking back here, Doc Brown is talking about 121 gigawatts. And at that time, this is where that line would have been. Now, obviously, we had a big jump up here, but it was hanging down here for a while, and it was hanging down here for a while. It was all the way down here. You know, and you can see we had this big dip. By the time we got to the end of that dip, more volume came down here, especially when you see these bigger candles. But, you know, that's not super important, but it reinforces, you know, you're seeing multiple signs, multiple confirmations of what you might be looking for. And obviously right here, you know, we've got big bars. That's the second highest area. That point of control line was here longer than it has been up here. So it tells you there's a lot of support and resistance in this area. And if I remember correctly, even on our fib retracement, we had, I think, what was it? Like this, we had the 700 line right about there. So you could go in and you could say, all right, well, it's looking, if we kind of average this out a little bit, say we put a line right there. Now, typically, I'll actually make these dashed or dotted, just so that they're, you know, because the screen gets cluttered up real fast. And when you're going across the chart here with support and resistance, what you're kind of looking for is you're looking for multiple confirmations in this way as well. So, you know, we came up to this level, we hit resistance. broke through, came down, found support. Came down, found support. It's not always going to be exactly on the line. I mean, things in nature tend not to be that specific. But, we're finding support in this area. So if we do break down, I'd be hoping that, we'll probably find support here. We may find support here if it continues down. If it continues to go further than that, I'd be looking around here. Yeah. You could see, matter of fact, I'll even draw it in here. We found support here, found support here, found support here. Even had a little resistance here. So, back to the future now. If we're coming down, I would probably expect, let's say we, pull one of these. I would expect to find a little support here. Expect to find a little support here. And hopefully enough support to carry on from that point. Bless it. All right. So yeah, so that is our our fixed range volume profile right there. And there's a couple other little ones if you are up in the indicators. I think there's what is it, like dynamic range or something? I forget. I don't know. This is the only one I've really used. Maybe at another time we could. I'm planning in the future for future videos because we're gonna run out of features in Market Cipher. We're gonna run out of the very basic stuff that you're doing in TradingView, and so I want to get to a point where we're playing around with new indicators. We're checking it out, do a little bit of research. I'll do it right here on the video, find out how it works, and see if it's of any use. I know I've played around with a number of other tools here in TradingView, and there are some interesting ones. Most of them just turn your damn chart into a spider web. I mean, that's one thing. When I was starting out, I was like, oh yeah, I'm using this tool, I'm using that. Like, oh, we got the GAN fans going, and we got these. What the heck was it? Was trying out, you can do the pitchforks, or you can do the trend-based fib, or you start getting the GAN fans. Try the GAN box, fib circles. I'd be curious to see. I don't know how much use that is. It probably shows. Yeah, like when you start doing like this fib wedge, and basically it's like your Fibonacci retracement, but you are, let's say, running out at an angle. And you have concentric Fibonacci circles, and like everything else, you'd be surprised how much it follows. Like, say you start down here at your swing low, and you got those fib circles going. I mean, you'll watch it like come right here, and you'd be like, oh man, yeah, everything kind of hugged that line for a while. The next one might come right here. You'd be like, oh, hug that line for a while. We'll get into those later, but it's interesting ways to look at and find support and resistance. And if you've been watching Crypto Face, you'll know he does the spider lines, and the spider lines is very much like some of these like what's the word, not like angular or circular fib retracements, or like the GAN fan where you got lines radiating out from a single point. And it's very similar to that. But let's get rid of that. So we found some support, some resistance. Now when you get a case like this, you have this big area where there's not a lot of support or resistance, but we pull back a little bit, obviously. We've got a little something over here. So if we were to take off, let's say we put one right there. If we were to break out, I would expect to see some resistance right there. And a way that I like to do things now, as opposed to always maybe doing lines, especially when you get into an area. Where are we here? Especially when you get into an area where, you know, you're seeing support and resistance, but it's not always necessarily coming to the exact same line. You could, at that point, you could, you know, maybe you have a range that you draw with your little rectangle. Not necessarily saying that is precisely it, but you know, if we were to bring up our this guy again, you kind of see that, you know, realistically, this might be, you might do something like that. You might say, okay, well, we got this range here where there's a lot of volume support, a lot of volume resistance, a lot of volume action, we'll say that. And you're thinking, okay, well, once we get up into this range, if I'm in a trade, I'm really going to be watching to take profits or potentially, you know, start thinking about a short. If we're breaking through, I mean, you'll notice it's all wicks above here. I mean, no candles closed above here. So if you're in a trade and you're breaking out of this range, out of this box, I mean, you're getting close. You're looking to cut the trade, and that can also be good. Slightly different, but also support and resistance. It can be good on large time frames when you're kind of range bound. So I don't know, this isn't a specific example, but if you did something like, stop doing that, did something like that, and you're just bouncing around in this range, and at one point, you know, a while back, Cardano, when everybody was calling it a stable coin and it was doing its little stable coin thing. Actually, I'm probably going too far. Matter of fact, I still had one. So for a while here, you know, we were just bouncing around in this range. We popped out, came right back, popped out, came right back, till we finally broke out. And at this point, I don't think I actually checked the chart for a while. That was a good buy. What do we got here? We got some spaghetti left over. Some leftover spaghetti. Where's the beef? Alright, that one's doing nothing. And, you know, here's an example. I mean, we're up here on the daily chart, and I strongly doubt any of this was drawn on the daily chart, but, you know, we had some support and resistance lines going. Probably lost it. What do we, oh, some smaller ones. Come on. Alright, I don't know where the hell it went. Little Fibonacci retracement. Let's see how that played out. So, there was our one. We started here, came down to here. There we go. We're trading in this range. I mean, that lasted 16 days. Stayed in that range for 16 days. Now you can kind of see, okay, you know, kept finding support, kept hitting resistance, popped out for a second. This might even have been the one we just looked at. But I'll clear that out. But even here, came down, hit, Bounced around this golden pocket level for a minute. Came down, hit. Punched through a little bit, but yeah, just quick. And this isn't a golden rule, but oftentimes when you bounce off a level, come back and retest it, it tends to at least go through 2 levels before oftentimes getting stopped at the following one. And again, hit, stayed in here, bounced through. Like I said, not every time, but when it's pumping, 1 level, 2 level hit. 1 level, 2 level hit. 1 level, 2 level. This one spiked down, but still kind of found some support right there. But you kind of see it's, how it plays out. It's not 100. Look, I mean, that one came in right on that moving average line. Again, another potential support or resistance is your moving averages, especially when you're breaking out of these tighter ones and you get into, man, I'm curious what that is. Is it a 50? Ribbon 9. Well, whatever ribbon 9 is, it's a 21. But again, coming up here, hit, bounced, hit, bounced, hit, bounced, came up, bounced, found support, punched up 2 more, came back down, bounced, before wrecking everybody, liquidating the world. Yeah, a lot of these didn't really play out. This one is actually a decent example here. Came in, probably drew it right around this point. Hit resistance, had a little trend going. Came up again, broke through. And on the larger scale of things, see, these ones are tough when you're trying to draw. This is technically getting into patterns, but when you're trying to draw patterns before you have enough data, if you will. So you kind of have to work with what you got. In this case, we were starting to see some resistance trend line coming through here. Saw this guy soon after. But, if all you have is this, and you're right here, all you got is these 2 points. It's all right, you extend those 2 points out, see where it takes you. And then finally, when we kind of came up here and bounced, all right, now we got 2 points. Now you got a potential trend line. And we hugged the top, but just never broke through. Came back down, found support. Again, hugging the top, just not enough oomph to get through it. Squeezed through the bottom. Dropped off. But this one didn't necessarily play out like a pattern. Usually with a pattern, if you're breaking out or breaking down, the typical case is you're taking high to the low. And obviously this is on the 4-hour. This is a big pattern. And run the logarithmic here, so as you drag it down, it stretches out. Realistically, we're not going to see this just go to 0 because it broke to the downside. So oftentimes, it's better off, having these smaller patterns. When you see big patterns, it'll definitely play support and resistance, just like we saw here. We found support along that trend line, at least for those 3 hits. I don't know. I'm getting into patterns too much. We'll leave that one for another video. But in order to really know patterns, you need to know support and resistance, because that's what your pattern lines really are. All right. back over to ETH here. Get rid of this dumbass rectangle. So, obviously, you know, we do have market ciphers, support and resistance. Out of curiosity, let's see how it lined up with what we drew. Here's our line. Yeah, we've got support forming right around that line. Here's our other line. Boom. Support forming around that. This guy up here is uncharted territory basically, but if we came over here, yeah, we got support forming around that. Let's see, we got these two lines. You know, a little bit there. This one, it's there. You don't see it quite as much on the SR. This line up here, yeah, we got some resistance. But you know, I'm gonna try to keep this one a little short. I know I tend to ramble on a little bit. If there's a specific indicator or feature, or I don't know what the, you know, a technique or a skill or some form of TA that you want to have me break down, by all means throw it in the comments. We'll go through it. I was planning on going through some of these features and then maybe jumping over to the charts just to do some like live time technical analysis. I probably could this time. The last couple videos ended up going to like an hour, and I'm like, all right, I mean, how long are you motherfuckers really gonna sit there and watch this shit? But I gotta watch my mouth. Maybe we'll just do a specific video just with live time TA, and so if you guys get tired of hearing about support and resistance lines, you can tell me to shut up and go over there and see what's happening. So alright everybody, I'm cutting it, and you all have a beautiful day, even if you are out in the freezing cold, but hopefully you've got a little bit of pretty snow to look at, which I don't, and if it's going to be cold, it might as well have snow. At least it'll look like a postcard, but keep it real, have a good one, live it to the fullest.